Hello, my name is Zachariah with Old Man Gaming, and welcome to another Snap Judgment review. Been a little while since I've done a Snap Judgment review. Kind of excited to do one again. Like I said in a previous video, just kind of trying to do these when the projects fall into my lap, and this one has. I'm really excited to take a look at it. This is a game I've just been kind of like hovering around on Steam for a very long time. Finally decided to take the plunge, especially since it is about to become a 1.0 and they're going to raise the price by $5 when it comes out of early access, and I wanted to get in on that cheaper price. So, what game am I talking about? Well, before we get into that, we have to do a couple of disclaimers. Number one, this is a Snap Judgment review. I think that a lot of game reviews nowadays get a little bit too into finishing a game. They forget what the game experience was like right off the bat. So I only do about 5 to 10 hours with my game, trying to give you an idea whether you're going to enjoy it right off the bat or not. That, coupled with the fact that I think video games are one of the most subjective forms of art, I won't be giving a score to this review either. I'll be telling you an overview of what the game is, then I'll be giving you a list of pros and cons to the game, in my point of view, as all reviews are, and then I'll be telling you whether I personally will be sticking with this game outside the purposes of this review. So now, without further ado, we are doing Shadows of Doubt. This is another game in a long trend of voxel games. Kind of since Minecraft, everybody's like, oh, well, we could do voxels. They're super easy to render and do and make procedural. And that way we can make more about the content, which I'm all for. So this is a voxel-based game, but it is very different from the others because it is a private detective game. It does take place in the far future, where there's a lot of pollution. There's also some cybernetic enhancements you can get, so it's a little bit cyberpunky in that way, but trust me when I say when you play it, it feels much more noir than sci-fi. What you do is you can either go into a kind of pre-generated map and story kind of first mission just to kind of get a feel for the game, which I recommend the first time through, or you can generate a completely new map and world and city. You can generate it from the name, you can generate it from everything. You also name your own character, and then you go in. There it is. Once you're in the city, you take the role of a private detective. You will get procedurally generated cases to solve, and kind of begin your career as a private investigator in this kind of dystopian future. How this will take place is you can listen to your scanner, find out about murders, which pay the biggest price but are the hardest cases to solve. You can also find flyers around town, even listen in on conversations to attempt to try to get cases and then get money. That money is then spent to getting more supplies for future cases and also upgrading or changing the looks of your apartments. Plus, this is a dystopian future, so a lot of your money goes to medical bills and keeping yourself alive and buying food that basically makes you nauseous. There is some light survival mechanics in this, and I do enjoy them. We'll get to that in the pros. But basically what you'll do is if you get go too long without drinking, you'll get a modifier that's a negative. Whereas if you drink regularly, you'll get a positive modifier, stuff like that. And just everything kind of causes a modifier. The game kind of plays out where you then have to... what's interesting about this is the cops are totally okay with you turning in the work to find out who is a killer or whatever, but they're not okay with you doing anything in front of them. So it turns into this weird game of stealth. The idea being you take the case and then you have to kind of sneak into places to figure stuff out. You have to sneak into the crime scene to investigate it. You have to sneak into other places of note to investigate them. You can also talk to people, even bribe some people to kind of get information, interview people and interrogate them. And then there's a whole slew of equipment that you'll need as you go along. The basic flow is when you get this, you also have a murder board where anything you find relevant to the case, you can pin to the murder board and it will kind of like attach itself to whatever connections that are already made there. And then you have to get this kind of form, at least for the murders, which is a resolution form, and you have to basically figure out You have to answer all the questions. Each question you answer gives you money. Each question you fail to answer takes money away. And the idea is find out who killed who, find out how they did it, find out what the murder weapon is, stuff like that. Answer those questions and then potentially arrest the suspect yourself. I find this part really interesting and kind of cool because it puts you in this place where you know exactly what you have to answer, and it keeps the flow of things going. The cases, the city, everything down to its guts is procedurally generated every time. Not every case, but every time. You create the city, you decide how big it is, you decide how many people are in it, and then from there on out, the cases are decided for you. But all the citizens that are going to exist in the city exist in the city, which is a really interesting, cool concept here. That's I find very cool. I'm a big fan of detective. I'm a big fan of noir stuff. So this is a kind of game that I've been kind of waiting to see done right in a long time. But it does have varying degrees of difficulty. The first case I did, you get this fingerprint scanner, which I actually, right off the bat, I was worried that it would be very straightforward. Every case was going to be find the fingerprints of the bad suspect, go arrest the bad suspect. But that's not the truth, because the first one was a very simple case where somebody shot somebody else and all I had to do was connect the fingerprints. But the second case has been a poisoning, and I am not lying. I have worked on this for the predominant amount of my time in this game. I have already spent 2 times in the hospital. I have gotten crap for leads I feel like I'm nowhere near close to figuring out who killed this person. And that's what's really cool about this, because it's completely procedurally, so it's completely unique to you. You can't look up a walkthrough. You have to figure this out on your own, which is really cool. I can't stress enough how I've only gotten 5 hours with this game, and I feel like there's so much more to discover here. So please keep that in mind when I go into the pros and cons. But let's get into it. First of all, pros. This is completely unique. That's going to be my highest pro. I don't know of any game that does anything like this. Yes, there are detective games out there, but they are written narratives. And with a written narrative, unfortunately, they sometimes become the easiest cases to crack, because you don't necessarily need to know the facts and put them together. You just need to know how the story would be written. With this, it is procedurally done. You have to figure out who killed this person and why. And it's all procedurally generated, and that is really cool. It is a completely unique experience, top down. And that brings me to the next positive, which is just the procedural generation is phenomenal here. There are definitely some cons, which we're going to talk about, but they are also promising a bunch of stuff coming in the later upgrades, especially even the 1.0 that goes live on the 26th, which I'm not going to lie, I actually thought about holding off this review until then, but I think maybe I'll just do a re-review after it comes out. I'm not sure, but I felt like it was worth talking about now. So there's a lot of things that could change later on, but overall it is a lot of fun. The other thing is the play options. I love the play options and how you tackle a case. When you go to the crime scene and you investigate the crime scene, you get just a gaggle of information. Most detective games that I've played kind of point you in 1 or 2 directions, and then it's up to you to kind of follow this. This points you in 1,000 directions. You have to weed out what is the useless information, what is the good information, and by doing that, you have to go investigate. You have to kind of play hunches just like a detective would and think, okay, I think this is probably who might know something about their death, and then figure it out. And again, going back to the stealth stuff. The stealth stuff is key in this game, which is not always positive, but every building has 3 or 4 ways to get into it, a lot of ways to sneak around it. There's always vent systems and other stuff that you have to kind of move through and trip. You can also, if you collect lockpicks, there's no lockpicking mini game. You just have to have a certain number of lockpicks for the task you're trying to do. So if you collect enough lockpicks, you can sabotage cameras, sabotage security systems, give yourself time inside the place that you're looking for. But it is extremely rewarding when you figure stuff out on your own. In the poison case that I'm working on, I knew that he worked at a specific building, and I knew that the other person, that a potential suspect worked in that building, but I couldn't get in to the office, so I snuck in through a vent, and then I found through a notepad that I previously found, I was able to hack into their computer, and just the joy of like realizing that I had the right passcode when I put it in was just awesome. This game has that feel for it. It has so much potential there, and I can't say that enough, because I am going to nitpick it now. I'm going to nitpick the crap out of it, but I just want to say overall, positive experience. And I think a lot of this stuff might get fixed in the release, especially since they're looking for console releases when they release on the 26th, which will lead me to my first big con, and that is the controller support is not super awesome. It's clunky, it's hard to figure out, it's hard to manage. It also, I have noticed, often doesn't target the thing that my actual cursor is targeting. There's some stuff like that has made me do some things wrong, maybe not enter things. It's hard to tell what window you're in to back out of. I'm hoping they refine that a little bit better and make that a little bit better of an experience. In addition to that, I think that they should allow you to have a larger inventory. Right now, the way the game works is you have 3 items that you always have and you can never lose. That's a fingerprint scanner, your watch, and your fists. Those items are yours, period. Fists for fighting, watch for checking time, fingerprint scanner for scanning fingerprints. Other than that, you can have 4 items on your person, but that is any type of item. So like 1 set of handcuffs takes up an inventory space. The only thing that doesn't like use those inventory space are the lockpicks that you collect. And I just wish there was more inventory. I can't count the number of times I've run out of inventory, especially since when you have to eat food in the game, which you do, and I forgot that as a pro. I did want to talk about that, but when you have to eat food in the game, you kind of like, you have to use an inventory spot, even though you're about to eat it anyway. Because of that, you always have to have an inventory spot free, so you kind of only have 3 spots, which is super obnoxious. If you want to take a weapon with you, like 1/3 of your space is used up, and a lot of times you have to take pieces of evidence with you. But yeah, my next con is the loading. The loading time on this, and I am assuming that this is probably going to be worked out a little bit in the 1.0 version, but the loading time on this is pretty heavy. And I'm running it on a pretty good computer that can handle this thing, but it just chugs sometimes, even when I'm not using a big large map. Mainly the problem is right when you boot up. It takes a really long time for it to kind of render the whole city, and then once you're in, there's kind of some stutter stops at the very beginning for the first kind of minute of play, and then it figures its stuff out and it's fine. But overall, that loading time is just, it's pretty heavy, and I don't like that. Again, mostly a nitpick though. I don't think that'll take away from your fun at all. And then my only other thing, and this is just because of the voxel art, and I don't think that they can do anything about this, is that, you know, when you're playing a voxel game, you're playing like the Teardown, it's great because you can see everything getting destroyed, but you don't need that level of detail. With this, it's all about managing people and like who's your suspect and who are you talking to. I'm not gonna lie, the voxel art kind of creates this level of face blindness, which is a little bit frustrating in a private detective game. I found it sometimes hard to tell my suspect from another person on the street, and caused some really awkward conversations. So I hope, I don't know how they would fix that. I think that's just going to be a side effect of the way they've decided to do it, and that's fine. That being said, it is still kind of a minor annoyance. I do want to just jump back. I'm sorry I'm out of practice to the pros. One thing that I do like is how they treat the survival system in this. Like I said, there is a survival system. You can get thirsty, you can get hungry, you can get tired, you can bleed. This is all managed by like negative and positive modifiers. Instead of like, I'm going to die if I don't eat every like every 3 minutes. What happens is you just get that modifier, that negative modifier, and then once you have that negative modifier, until you eat, it's there. And I thought this was a really cool way of doing things. I also really enjoyed, like, if you get cold in the game, if your character gets cold, like spends too much time in a freezing area, he'll start to shiver, which means your camera will just jitter. I thought that was great. That's just such a good, easy modifier to do, and it's very kinetic and makes a lot of sense. So I think they did their modifiers amazingly well. Now, whether or not I'm going to stick with it, the answer is an emphatic yes. This is one of the most interesting detective games I've ever played. I'm really excited to continue to kind of build my character, build stuff to it. There's a lot of stuff I want to see in this game. A lot of stuff I didn't mention in the cons because it's stuff that I would like to see. I'd love to see you to be able to build relationships with characters other than just whether or not they're a suspect. Build friends, build contacts. I think, and especially with the procedural generation, if those contacts could then become the center of an investigation, that would make the game even more interesting. But again, it's in early access. It's only about to come into 1.0 on the 26th. So I think overall it's doing a great job. So yeah, I'm definitely going to stick with it. I'm going to keep playing it. Did I get it right? Did I get it wrong? You guys can let me know in the comments. You can also contact me on Facebook at OldManGamingDH, on X at OldManGaming9. You can also contact us on Discord. Link is in the description below. Influence us in all of our shows from there. As long as you guys keep watching and listening, we'll keep making them. We'll see you guys next time.